Hi everyone, alright, it is time for our final review video. It's time to talk about ecology. So, let's get to it. First thing on our ecology list here is the levels of organization when it comes to ecology. So let's look at our notes for that. So, at the bottom of the level is an organism, a single living thing. Could be an animal, could be a plant, as long as it's living, but just one. Just one. For example, one bison, one lizard, one parakeet, one squirrel, one frog, one king crab, one turtle, one mushroom, one shrew. As long as it's one, that is one organism. Now, if we go one step up, we have more than one kind of that organism. And we have a population. Population is when we have a group of that one organism. So, lots of dandelion flowers together, a lot of elephants together, tigers together, bison together. All these are populations. Now, we got organism, population, and then we're going to go up one more, and we have a community. Now, a community is a combination of different populations coming together. So we have more than one population here. We have maybe some populations of bison, along with some populations of hawks, some populations of snakes and prairie dogs, all living together. You know, even with a population of grass, because grass is a living thing. And here's another great example of a community. Look at all these different populations. We got zebras, trees, we have elephants, we have antelope. I'm sorry. All living together. Alright, let's go one step further. After community, we have an ecosystem. So an ecosystem is a little more difficult. Ecosystem is all the living things in an area and the non-living things. So now we're talking about things like rocks, water, the temperature, the soil itself, the dirt, all these things interacting with our living populations or these living communities. So here's a good example of an ecosystem. We've got some water here, we've got some rocks, we've got these different populations of animals, different populations of plants. All these are great examples of what an ecosystem would look like. Of course, that's not the only thing we have though, right? After an ecosystem, we could have a biome. So a biome is the part that contains all these ecosystems. So we have different kinds of biomes. And we need to talk about each of those, right? So let's go down a little further into our biome part of the notes, and let's move our study guide along. Because after these levels, we have the biome. Now we have many different kinds of biomes, but I think it's going to help to look at pictures as we talk about them. So back to the notes we go, right? Alright, so let's take a look here. A biome is a large-scale ecosystem, and it's really taking into account the elevation, the different types of soils, the different type of geology, and the climate of that area. Now we have a lot of different biomes. We've only covered a few in class, but we are going to apologize again, it's very late at night. Alright, so let's look at all the different biomes that we have. First off, the tropical rainforest. It's found near the equator. That means kind of the middle of the earth. The middle of the earth. And here it is always hot and humid. It's always hot and humid. There's not a lot of change here. If you're wondering what the temperature is like here, it's hot and it's humid. Humid means there's a lot of air, a lot of water in the air. And in these places, we have a lot of biodiversity. That means we have a lot of different kind of living things. Just look at this ecosystem of the rainforest here. Look, we got all these different animals here in this small little section. Now, animals in a tropical rainforest are going to live at very specific parts. These animals might only live at certain portions of the trees. Many have symbiotic relationships with each other, and it's very common to see camouflage. Savanna is another type of biome. It is a lot different from a tropical rainforest. It is hot, like a tropical rainforest, but it's dry, very dry, not a lot of rain. And it has a lot of grass. And the important thing to remember here is that it has 2 seasons. One dry season where a lot of the plants start to die off, and one rainy season where plants begin to grow very fast because we have all this water coming down all almost at once. And we find these kind of savannas in northern Australia, Central Africa, and Central South America. Now, when it comes to the animals, keep in mind that the animals are dependent on water. So a lot of what they're going to be doing is hunting for food and water. That's why they migrate. They're always looking for food. They're always looking for water. And they're going to reproduce, which means to have babies in the rainy season. The babies need rain, and they need rain. They need that water to survive. Now, speaking of water, a place that does not have a lot of water is the desert, and that's our next biome. Now, this biome sees less than 20 centimeters of rain a year. That is a tiny amount of water to have for just 1 year. It is the driest place on Earth, these deserts. And there's very little nutrients that the plants can get from the soil. Now, animals in this kind of environment are going to have a thick outer skin to help keep in the moisture. Look at this snake and this lizard here. It's a very thick skin. It keeps in moisture. During the day, they tend to dig underground to try and avoid the sun, the heat. They'll come out at night when it's not as hot. And a lot of times we're going to see smaller animals in the desert. Alright, besides the desert, we have a tundra. So the tundra is the North and South Pole, and it's incredibly cold. It's almost never higher than 10 degrees Celsius. Okay, since it's that cold, plants almost never grow, right? Now we have a special layer in the soil here. There's a layer called the permafrost layer. It sits on top of the dirt, on top of the soil, and it's completely frozen. This topsoil is called the permafrost. And because it's so cold, there's very short growing seasons in the tundra. Now the animals have special adaptations to this, right? They have small ears to keep in heat, and they have thick furs and a lot of fat to keep them warm. We have few top predators here. This type of biome doesn't support a lot of top predators. Alright, forest. We got 2 kinds of forest. A deciduous and a coniferous forest. A deciduous forest has mild, wet climates, but the important thing to remember here is that a deciduous forest has its trees lose its leaves, like up here in New York. A coniferous forest is found further up north, and they have evergreen trees, which means they always keep their leaves, even when it gets cold. Now, animals tend to hibernate in this kind of climate for the winter, and they grow winter coats to keep warm. And they get their food from everywhere. They're not as picky as their tropical rainforest animals. Finally, the ocean. And I love the ocean. It's such an interesting biome. It covers 3/4 of the planet, and there's many different types of saltwater environments. We're really only looking at the ocean. We're scratching the surface here. The ocean has many different layers, and these layers are created because light is slowly filtering into them. And the deeper we go, the less light we're going to get. Now, the animals have adjusted to the water. The water animals are incredible because we could have small animals and large animals. Being in water makes you a little lighter, so it supports large organisms. Think about how big a whale is. A whale can really grow as large as it is because the water supports that kind of large animal. Now, there's a variety of ways of breathing here in the ocean environments, gills and lungs. Lungs is what we have. We have a set of lungs here that expand and contract, let us breathe, and that's what whales have. They're mammals, like us. Now, other fish have gills. They breathe through these gills. We both breathe oxygen. We breathe it through the air. Fish breathe their oxygen through water, and they take the oxygen out of the water through gills. Alright, and I believe that is it when it comes to the different types of biomes. So after the biomes, we have a couple of other words we need to know. Alright, we're on to producers. Now producers I think it'd be better if we look at the notes, right? There's a few more pictures. So let's look at the notes. Producers are the first food makers. They use sunlight to make food. Think about any plant. Any plant is going to use sunlight to create sugar for itself so it can grow. Now, it's not just producers, right? Producers feed a lot of different things. The first thing producers feed are the primary consumers. Those are the living things that get all their energy from eating plants. Now, these animals cannot make their own food through sunlight. They don't go out in the sun and then, make themselves full. These animals get themselves full and get their nutrients from eating plants. Now, secondary consumers are living things that eat other plant-eating animals. Could be a cheetah, could be a snake, could be a shark, could be me, could be a human, right? Secondary consumers eat other animals. Now, decomposers are a little different. They're living things that turn dead plants and animals into their own food source. They convert anything that's dead and slowly break it down to nutrients. And these guys are important. It's the reason why we don't have a bunch of dead old bodies everywhere. These guys help break that kind of stuff down. It's super important. Now, a few other words you need to know. Herbivore, that's a type of animal that only eats plants. Carnivore, it's a type of animal that only eats heterotrophs, which means other animals. These are our secondary and tertiary consumers. Scavengers, they're animals that feed on dead animals. And omnivores, this is important. Omnivores eat both plants and animals. Alright, that's it. I hope this answers all your questions. Good luck studying. I'll see you all Monday. Good night.